Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
Stephen Alexander, the creator of Huckleberry, a Wyrd West RPG.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. Stephen, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this very interesting role playing game. I love the title. Immediately makes me think of Tombstone. I assume that's where the title comes
Absolutely.
from.
Absolutely, yes. I had a long list of titles when I was trying to name the game, and Huckleberry was at the bottom, and I'm like, I can't do that because it's just a straight pull from the quote. But all these other titles that I had thought of myself just sucked in comparison. And the more I started calling it Huckleberry as like my working title, the more it just felt natural, and I couldn't resist by the end.
So, this is a Weird West role playing game, meaning, I'm assuming, there's a Wild West that has supernatural elements involved in it, kind of like maybe DC's Jonah Hex at some point. Am
Yeah,
I correct?
Absolutely. So it doesn't take place in the actual American West. We call it the Fifth World or the Weird Frontier, and in a way, it's sort of post-apocalyptic, but it doesn't have like Mad Max vibes. The idea is that our world that we live in ended in 1870-ish, and people migrated to a new world. And it draws from a lot of indigenous mythology from all across North America and Central America. That the world that we're in will end, and there will be one last world. And that's kind of what Huckleberry starts with. So uh, it would be analogous to like 1880, 1890s, like technology and things like that. But it's a whole new world, whole new geography, and some very strange creatures inhabiting it.
Interesting. So it's not like I think I'm trying to remember the exact title of this '80s cartoon, Galaxy Rangers, I think it was called, where it's like sci-fi and western. It's not that per se. It sounds like it's just typical the technology level of the Wild West in a different alien world with supernatural
It,
elements.
yeah, it's not heavy into sci-fi. Like it doesn't go full steampunk or anything like that. And it does have some sort of weird science, but mostly it's grounded in folklore and the horror that folklore embodies. So it tends to be more grounded than anything. There is this supernatural force called the Wyrd that can corrupt everything, and it's a very tragic world because everything will be corrupted by the Wyrd in time. It's just how long can you prolong your life? And the Wyrd normally has like effects that are sort of cancerous, where you'll pass from natural causes. But there's a select few where it will cause strange mutations. And a lot of times it causes insanity, things like that. When it's in animals, it creates very strange and powerful monsters that threaten normal folks. And then in an even smaller percentage of people, it gives you powers, but it doesn't uh, actually become a detriment. And those are what the players are. We call them mavericks. So you are slightly more powered than a regular person. It's not like superhero levels of power, but you're definitely heroic. And you're able to draw on this supernatural force that kills everything else, but you're able to take power from it and defend your hometown, your area from these supernatural creatures.
Oh, interesting. And I assume that's one of them on the cover. Well, I'm pointing over
Absolutely,
here, but it's
yes.
actually yeah. What if I may ask, what is that thing?
So that we've got a lot of names for it, but essentially it's a goat that was corrupted by the Wyrd and became this like monstrous demon. And you can kind of see that a maverick is ready to show down with it. So that's very similar to some of the monsters that you would fight, where an animal just became corrupted and mutated until it became good and evil aren't really the right ways to translate the Wyrd, because the Wyrd is a natural force. It doesn't have morality, but it's very incongruent with our society. So, like, when things are tainted by the Wyrd, they're often needing to be put down by mavericks and bounty hunters and things like that.
So I have to ask, where did the idea for this come from, and why this idea?
Yeah, so Huckleberry actually started as a 1930s FBI game. I wanted to have Call of Cthulhu, but you actually fight the monsters in the end. I wanted to have the investigation, but I also wanted the action to have an equal part on the stage. And there were various things about it that just weren't clicking for me, and it just wasn't working. And two of my favorite media monoliths are Hellboy and westerns, especially Tombstone being one of my favorites. So I decided to do a bit of a genre switch, and I kept the investigative side, but I just put it 50, 60, 70 years earlier into the Wild West. And that's when it really started to click because there's a lot more in the Western fantasy. There's a lot more room for the action, for the monsters to be prowling about instead of like on a street of Chicago where it wouldn't quite, it would feel a little too incongruous. And it clicked from there. So it really was an evolution from an old game that just needed a facelift, and now we have Huckleberry.
That's so interesting. Usually, when I hear of creators changing the setting, for example, I think I just saw a documentary about Big Trouble in Little China, and how originally it was a western, but they
Yeah.
moved it to modern times because it was easier for storytelling purposes.
Hmm.
Um, but you went backwards. You actually went to the Wild West. Are you a fan of Western epics?
So I've always been a big cinephile, I guess. I don't watch a lot of movies that aren't adventure films, and as a kid especially, it was adventure films all the time. So Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and my stepdad liked westerns. So we had a big library of westerns, but I would only watch the ones that were adventurous, like Tombstone and things like that. So I've always it's nostalgic for me to go back to westerns, especially the ones that focus on the adventure of the mythology, the action of the mythology. And I still enjoy the dramatic ones. The ones that are a little bit more of a slow burn, as westerns tend to be. But that was something that I came to love as an adult. But the adventurous side is always been within me since childhood.
So what was it like creating this? Did the setting sounds like the setting came first and then character creation afterwards?
So because it was the FBI game first, I had about 60 to 75% of the mechanics created. And I had a framework for character creation, which is very simple. It's just trait based. You have four categories and you choose traits from them, and you're able to build the character you want without being beholden to classes or anything like that. So, really, what changed was needing to go back and reflavor traits, getting more inspiration for mechanics from westerns rather than the noir films I had been watching a lot of previously. So actually, the mechanics came before the setting, and then everything clicked once it became a western. I was able to find a lot more inspiration for mechanics. I was able to find a lot more inspiration for stories and things like that. But definitely, the mechanics were there from the beginning.
So you mentioned that this originated from playing some Call of Cthulhu games. Is the mechanics like a variation of Call of Cthulhu? Is it something you have to
They
start
could
from
not be more
scratch?
different. So I love Call of Cthulhu. I'm playing in a very long Call of Cthulhu game where we just had like 70 sessions or something like that, and we're still going strong. So I really do love Call of Cthulhu and the percentile and the skill based. But Huckleberry is not percentile, and it only has 9 skills. So the way Huckleberry works is that you have 4 attributes that have a die size. You have 9 skills that have a die size, and when you're rolling, you always pair an attribute with a skill. You roll both, add both dice together, and a 10 or better is a success. So it's very much player facing all the time, which is something I do like about Call of Cthulhu, that you roll and you immediately know how good of a success you got. But the actual mechanics themselves are very, very different.
So is this your first role-playing game?
First published, yes. So I've been dabbling for a long time, but this is my first one that I've gotten all the way to the finish line.
I really want to ask you actually questions about character creation because I'm curious what you can be in this game. But I'm very curious about also the creation process of this role playing game. That if I go back and forth a lot, I apologize.
No worries.
Um, but I have to ask because I know a lot of creators, especially first time creators, the biggest hurdle seems to be artwork, finding the
Mm.
right artists, and then like finding the right graphic designer so that they can match what you envision for layout versus what they can do. Um, if you can you share a little bit of the process behind that? What was that like? Was it a difficult one, and what were
That
some of
was
the challenges?
surprisingly easy for me. I don't try to be contrarian, I promise. But the artist for Huckleberry is George Sellis, and I had actually worked with him 10 years ago on a comic book project. I wrote a comic book that was shockingly 1920s folklore horror. You'll sense that there's a genre that I keep getting drawn back to. And we worked together. We worked really well together. He created an amazing comic based on my script. And when it came time for Huckleberry's art, I'm like, he's my first choice. So I called him up, said, hey, I know it's been 10 years since we worked together, but this is perfect for you. What do you think? And he said, I'm available. And it was just that easy. As for graphic design, that was a little bit harder for me because I don't know anything about graphic design. And I emailed a couple people reaching out just from contacts that I found online that I knew they did games that I liked, and they were all too busy. But each one recommended the same person to me, Nathan D. Paoletta, who I actually knew him as a game designer, not a graphic designer. He created Worldwide Wrestling and a couple other games. He's been a designer for like 20 years now. And he has a real passion for helping people break into the industry. He's done several podcasts teaching game design, and it ironically, I was listening to a lot of his podcasts as I was creating the FBI game for Huckleberry, so that felt natural as well. And I emailed him and asked him his availability, and he offered a discount even because it was my first game. So that was just really cool to be able to. It felt like a full circle moment. Like this is a guy that helped me learn game design years ago, and now he's helping with my game.
You know, I'm glad you said that because I felt a very strong comic book vibe from the artwork that I see here. Um,
Yes.
for the cover, especially, was that something you suggested that you wanted to see, or was that the artist, or a little bit of both?
So that's really George's style. He does very heavy lines and inking like that, which is why I was drawn to him for the comic book way back when. And I love that style. And for Huckleberry, my two cultural media touchstones are Hellboy and Tombstone. Hellboy being a comic book with very heavy ink, so it felt right to have that style, that heavy lines, the comic book, like you said, and it really brings a lot of character, I think, to Huckleberry. That it not to I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but I feel like Huckleberry has its own identity specifically because of George's style. So it felt good having him on.
Hmm. So let's talk about character creation. So let's start with who can you be, or what can you be in this game?
So the basic premise is that everyone is human. You are a human that was tainted by the weird, but there are very different flavors of human in this game. So there are different categories of traits. There is blood, which represents like ancestry you have. Flesh, which represents a physical trait that is inherent to you. There is your disposition, which is your personality, and a culling, which is sort of like a skill or education that you picked up along the way. And you go through in that order. You pick your blood first, and that's the biggest one that determines like your abilities. And one of them is like Devil Child. So if you've seen some of the Huckleberry art, there is a very dapper gunslinger that is like looks like a literal devil. Ironclad is another fun one where it's some of that weird science where it assumes that you're a bit of a cyborg, and it doesn't prescribe any of these things on you. You can choose Devil Child and you can flavor it that you're a hothead. that you are just always getting into trouble, that kind of thing. The ironclad, you could flavor it that you're just sort of a gadgeteer, you're an inventor, that you've got metal pieces all over you, but they're not actually embodied in you. So it's very freeform in that narrative sense. And the titles of the traits are just jumping off points for you to decide what kind of character you would be. Another fun one is the leech, which is sort of like our vampire esque type thing, but they can drain someone's blood to help heal themselves. And we have some artwork where our leech pre-generated character has like a massive leech for a tongue. But I've had a lot of players who play it like the actual standard vampire. I have someone who wanted to be a mosquito, so they've got a very long proboscis. I believe I'm saying that word right, and things like that. So we try to keep it as freeform narratively as possible, and the traits are meant to be inspiration for your character.
Is there magic or spells in this game?
There is no magic user. There is magic in Huckleberry, and very much tied into the folklore and things like that. But the game itself is fairly grounded on that front, so there'll never be like a casting class or anything like that. We do have the shaman trait, which allows you to speak with the dead. So once per scenario or twice per scenario, depending on how long the scenario is, you can actually have a sort of seance where you perform a ritual and the dead will answer questions for you. And the GM has to answer them honestly based on what the dead know and things like that. So there's definitely ways you can tap into that. We have another trait called Hexen, which is like a hexer, like warlock type thing, where they use their own blood to power bonuses. Especially into their gun, so you can like increase the base damage of your guns. You can perform different abilities because you're willing to injure yourself ahead of time to perform these rituals. So the magic is not, it's definitely not high magic, it's more ritualistic.
Hmm. And what type of dice do you use for this game?
I am a dice goblin, so I wanted to use all the dice. That was one of my, from the very beginning of creating this system, I'm like, I want to use them all. And you know what? I want to use two of them all. So in Huckleberry, it uses D4 through D20, and it's recommended that you have two sets because sometimes you'll be rolling two of each die. The D4s are very rarely rolled. The D20s are very rarely rolled. D12 through D6 gets rolled quite often.
And so let's talk about the antagonists in this game. Is there a bestiary and is there like NPCs, anything like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So we call them hostels, and the core book has 26 of them right now. When we initially launched the core book, it was a very slim version, launched a year ago, August 2024. I should probably say the date because who knows when people will be listening. And now, as of September 2025, we've tripled the amount of hostels in there. And we have plans to add even more if our upcoming backer kit does well, but we'll see. And the hostels tend to be a variety of things. They can be like outlaws. They can be. We have one that's a seer, which is kind of like able to predict maverick moves. Mavericks are what we call our players. And then we have some that are just undead, the standard sort of undead were like a zombie. We have a really cool one that I'm very fond of called a consumptive, which is someone who died of consumption of tuberculosis. And they raised as an undead, but now they are full of bile and blood, and they will literally cough it up and spew it up. And it gets into a little bit of body horror there, where like the bile will burn you if you're too close and things like that. And then we have some that are a bit more natural type monsters and things like that. Kind of like our goat demon here, that would be considered a brute, or you could also reflavor that as like a grizzly bear, things along those lines.
When it comes to westerns, I think most people have an easy idea of what to visualize. Even I would say even game masters have an idea how to run a western. It's by the tons of media out there that we've seen. Um, but is there anything in this book that helps game masters, whether they're maybe they're not um, that familiar with westerns? Is there anything like any game master tools that may help them?
So one of the other design goals for me was to be very easy to GM. I'm a lazy GM. I don't like doing a ton of work on the fly because I'm trying to run the story. I don't want to have to worry about the mechanics and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that Huckleberry really excels in is it allows you to let the mechanics as a GM just fall away and you focus on the storytelling. A lot of our tools are they really help you with the investigation and the adventure side, which is what we try to lean into. And as long as you have a cursory knowledge of westerns, you're gonna be fine. If you can talk in a fake pretend Southern accent, or if you pretend to, tip your hat, you're already doing well enough with Huckleberry. Some of the GM tools that I'm most fond of is that we have a framework for clues because a lot of Huckleberry's bounties are investigations. You have to find the monster before you fight it. So we have three different types of clues that are open, hidden, and locked. And an open clue is a clue that, as soon as the players enter the scene with an open clue, it should be revealed to them. So the GM knows that this is information that should be kept above board at all times. And if they're looking for this, they find it. A hidden clue is something that the players have to go searching for. They have to actively say, I am searching this desk, I am going to search this closet for clues, or something along those lines. And it does not require a skill check either, but it's something that's just one layer behind and requires proactiveness on the player to get to. And then our final tier of clue is locked clues. And locked clue requires a successful skill check to find. So it could be things like if you're trying to perform an autopsy or if you're trying to track something down, it's going to require a skill to perform. And if you succeed, you're going to be able to get that clue and information associated with it. So in that way, we try to break down the parts of the game that are most important to Huckleberry for new GMs to be able to easily run and just have very clear above the board. It's not my mind's blanking. It's not amorphous. It's not something that is very difficult to grasp because we've clearly laid out what you're supposed to do.
Hmm.
And in the same way, our hostels, like we were just talking about, the monsters, they have very specific actions that they perform based on the trail boss anteing up. So during combat, the trail boss will flip over a card from a deck of cards, and that is essentially like an AI generator for the monsters. They're not that intelligent, so AI is very a loaded term there. But it gives them four options, and then they can possibly get a critical by flipping over a face card, or a fumble if they flip over an ace. That's good for players. And it allows the GM to focus on telling the story of the combat without having to think strategically about how this hostile will perform best. The hostile is going to perform at maximum efficiency all the time. That's just the nature of the system. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about positioning or anything like that, whether you're flanking properly. If you have 20 kobolds on a map, you don't have to worry about making sure each one does optimal actions. And because the game is entirely player facing, players are rolling to defend. You also don't have to worry about like remembering their attack bonuses or anything like that. All you have to do is flip over the card. It tells you who the monster is attacking. The player will roll their save. So in that sense, we try to make it easy on GMs.
Weapons. I'm curious when it came to obviously westerns and guns are go always go together. Did you go the historical route or did you have some more creative sci-fi elements to it? What did you do exactly?
So we went the historical route mostly. We didn't choose like we didn't say this one is a cult peacemaker. We have revolver as a broad category of like what your weapon is. I'm very proud of the weapons in Huckleberry. We call them big irons as an homage to the old Marty Robbins song. And when you start, you choose your big iron, which is sort of your iconic weapon, and you can have more than one, but you can also modify them. So you can spend your chips, your money to make the range longer on weapons, make the range shorter, to have more ammunition, to allow you to do special things like to be able to inflict bleeding on a hostile or to stun them, things like that. So the big irons are really an extension of your character in Huckleberry, and it's a very important part of character progression is how you modify your big iron to your play style. So we went with broad categories. We didn't necessarily go historical in the sense of like naming everything with brands or anything like that, but we did keep it fairly grounded from the get go. And where we've added the weird stuff is in our scenarios. So we already have 5 published scenarios out there. We have plans to publish several more, and that's where you can get the unique loot. So I make it a point that every scenario is going to have a unique big iron or a unique hostile, well, especially unique hostiles, but or a unique kit, which is like a one-time use item that you can use. And I I envision it that you'll be able to talk to people and say, "Hey, have you run this scenario?" They'll say yes, and you say, "Did you get that revolver from that scenario? That one's pretty awesome." Things along those lines, where you get the stuff that's a little bit weirder as a reward for the storytelling, not something that you necessarily start out with.
Having this at a alien setting helps actually game masters not worrying about historical context for, like, let's say a capital at a state somewhere. You have to worry about, okay, when was this capital founded, what was going on politically at the time, is it a ghost towns, or was it a driving town, was there mines nearby, all that stuff, with this, you kind of gives game masters the freedom to kind of like, okay, there is a mine over here and there is a waterfall over there. You kind of create the setting and the history of the area around it. There's a question in there somewhere. Give me. There's a
No, you're
question in
absolutely
there.
right though. That was my that was very much the goal of like an all new setting, is that I didn't want the baggage of actual American history or Mexican history or Canadian history, based wherever you want it to be. I didn't want people to have to feel like they needed to learn all the textbooks to navigate all the politics or anything like that. Huckleberry is meant to be fun. It's meant to be something that you pick up and you play, and it doesn't require weeks and weeks of study before you do so. So that was very much the intention. And going along with how the game master can just say, like, there's a mine over here, there's a swamp over there, that's also very much in the game. And we recommend that that GMs don't actually make a map. You just say, like, oh yeah, the mountains are to the north, so if there's a mine, it's likely to the north. The ocean is to the east, so if you want to get to the swamps, that's probably the way to go. And keep it free form. I imagine it being kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Gunsmoke, where everything is centered around a hub. You have your hole in the wall, your hideout, your base that you live in, and then there are spokes that you push out as you go through and you hunt down bounties and things like that, but you always return home in the meantime. So the actual world around it affects the players, but the locations it's allowed to be freeform, and you don't have to have the map that you feel beholden to. You don't need to memorize 30 years of some fantasy writer's lore to keep track of. Don't get me wrong, I love games like that, but Huckleberry is not that. It's meant to be easy to jump into.
Okay, excellent. And where is this book right now? Is it available for purchase? Is this going to be in a crowdfunding campaign in the near future? Where is this book right now?
Yeah, so right now Huckleberry is available digital only, but as of October 7th, we will be launching a backer kit crowdfunding campaign to publish it physical copies. It's going to be a very nice cloth cover, special edition. I'm very excited for it, and we actually have a ton of feedback, a ton of excitement from the audience right now. So I feel very confident we're going to hit our goal, and hopefully we'll find some fun stretch goals along the way. It should be available in physical edition for everyone, hopefully by Q2 of 2026.
This crowdfunding campaign that you're starting, do you have any more stretch goal ideas, or are you trying to keep it simple?
So simple is definitely important important thing. This is my first published game, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, which is also why the game is finished right now. I wanted to have the game finished and in the can before I launched crowdfunding. I didn't want to have to manage the manufacturing and logistics while also finishing the game. That just felt like too much for me. So that's why Huckleberry released in a bare bones edition a year ago, and it's been expanded upon and expanded upon. And now that we have the finished edition, even if there are no stretch goals, there's a lot already in there. As for stretch goals, I do have some ideas. There's always something else that you want to put in it, right? The designer is always going to be plagued. Like, well, what if we added this? What if we added that? One of the easy stretch goals is that at every $1,000 over, we will be putting in more hostels, and then we have a few more big stretch goals planned. If we get $5,000 over, I'm adding another chapter, and it's going to be a chapter based on your hole in the wall, the hideout that I was talking about. And it'll have like more narrative mechanics for things that are happening in between bounties and how your home is changing because of you pursuing those bounties. Things along those lines. So we definitely have some ideas for stretch goals. If we unlock a lot of them, that's amazing. If we don't, I'm very happy with where the game is now. Everything else is just going to be gravy on top.
And if anyone wants to check it out digitally, they could go, I assume, through the website and also through Drive to RPG.
Yes, huckleberryrpg.com. And we've also got it on Drive Through RPG. Just one final brag, I guess. Currently, we're at 5 out of 5 stars on Drive Through RPG with quite a few ratings. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback so far.
Is there anything else about this book that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share?
We talked about character creation, horses. So one of our most recent updates was an entire chapter on mounts. And we call them rides because it's split between mounts and vehicles. So you could have a stagecoach if you want, like for the entire party to go along. And I'm very proud of them because of how they integrate with the basic mechanics of the game. They work very similar to same movement as Mavericks and things like that, but they give you a lot more range and flexibility, and it allows combat to essentially, like, combat can move down an entire street if everyone's mounted and things like that. And it also encourages people to have long range weapons because if you have a rifle, you can shoot a lot further than someone with a pistol. And my favorite part about horses is that we have this art by George Sellis that is like a catalog page, essentially. And you can randomly generate your horse. It'll tell you what color it'll be, what kind of markings. And there's a couple weird ones on there, like weird touched is what we call them, where like perhaps your horse is a little bit corrupted and has like a cricket mouth or something along those lines. So it allows you to create a very personalized mount, which to me is almost as important as having a personalized weapon for the Western genre.
Before we wrap up, I just want to say that I'll put all the links to everything you said in the description below. And I have one more question for you.
All right.
What is your favorite Western and why?
So I won't take the easy answer and say Tombstone because, I've talked about it enough. Aside from that, it would have to be Unforgiven. Classic Clint Eastwood Western, Gene Hackman lying there after being shot, and he's this horrible person, but he's on the side of good, and he feels indignant, and he says, I was building a house, as if that makes him immune to the same sort of carnage that he inflicts upon other people. There's just so much to dig into with characters there. I absolutely love it.
I was just reading today about a samurai version of Unforgiven with
Oh, yeah.
Ken Watanabe. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. Which is funny because, as you probably know, a lot of epic samurai films were translated over to westerns. So I'm keen to watch that just to see how they did it, how Japan has done it. But that's a different story for a different video. So yes, viewers, thank you for checking us out, and Stephen, thank you for talking to us about Huckleberry, a Wyrd West RPG. Thank you for your time and explaining this game to us. It sounds very exciting. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.